In this episode we're going to be assembling the Basering. However, first of all I need to give big shout outs to Chris Campling, Horlicks, Alan Allsop, David Trapp, Chris Davies, P40 F20, Van Oaks Prop Foundry, Love Minis and the Internet. Hey guys, so I've run into real problems this week. What I've actually been doing is trying to do these videos in advance. So as you're watching this, I'm probably about 8 or 9 weeks ahead of I'm actually building. So what I'm doing now, you'll see in about, if that makes sense. However, the problem I've run into is the dome pieces. I've got half glued together in the last episode. Because that was quite early on in the series, obviously I'm not as far ahead. Now I ran into a problem with my printer, and it's not printing very well, and every print I do with dome piece number 1 is actually cutting the top off. I tried to do a dome fix just by printing just the top off. However, nothing I do is coming out right, and I've actually run out of silver filament, so I can't print anymore, and for another week and a half. What happens is I'm because obviously I work and I have my budgets. I can only buy filament every so often, and I ran out of silver filament just after I got the last filament. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to go ahead in time, and we're going to put together the base ring, which we weren't planning to do until after we finished the dome. However, this is part of the reason why I say get things done ahead. They can sit there in the shelf. If you run into a problem, you can always look at something else to do. I mean, I must confess, another cheat that I've done, I've actually printed not just the base ring, but I've also done the first row of the body. Now you won't see that yet because I've not actually printed it on the videos, and we'll be beginning that later on. But today we were planning the dome, but obviously what's going to happen is we'll do the base ring, which is a nice simple process. However, before we start that, we'll start getting the little prints done in advance. So we're going to print off the pieces number 4 and 5 of the lower ring. So this is lower ring piece 4 and 5. It's nothing we haven't done before. Exactly the same, well, it looks exactly the same as the previous 3 pieces that we did last week, except obviously this has got 4 and 5 written on the bottom. It's about a 5-hour print. Usual settings, 0.3 layer height. You may notice a lot of my settings have changed. Kira actually did an update recently, and I managed to lose all of my settings, so I've had to go back to them and change them all again. Now I print on a very hot first layer, and then I go down a few degrees, which is why you'll see the differences in the temperature there. The print settings might be a little bit too slow. That normally needs to be on. No support needed, and I always print with a brim. That's through choice, and like I say, that's about a 5-hour print. Okay, so this is lower ring number 4. Very nice print, very happy with that in the end. There's a little bit of roughness to it, but that will be sorted out once we put it together. Now, it hasn't been printed out on supports as suggested by MR Badley. However, I'm not not totally happy with this. This might be because of the printer, it might be because of the filament, it might be because of the slicer. However, saying that, I think we can fix that with some sandpaper, so that's not going to be a major problem. This is piece number 5, which in all fairness they look pretty identical. The only difference between them really is occasionally you'll find a little 4mm hole there. It's got some larger holes there for basically, these are for attaching to the Lazy Susan, these are for attaching to the dome. So these go together, cannot remember which way round they go. So we'll bring in the previous piece that we've done. This is where the number system comes in very useful. Now I can see 1, 2, 3. So obviously the 4 goes into here. Like, it is a tight fit, which is good. There we go. So now we have, difficult to see because of the amount of view I've got on the camera, but this is the same width as the dome. And let me just bring the dome in. What will happen is this will go, I think it's going to go that way. Yes, it will go that way because of where the ridge is. There'll be an inner ring that goes on top, and then as you see the dome goes on top of that, and that's where the gap is where the other ring will be. So looking nice. So next week we'll get that finished off, and then obviously at some point in the future we'll get that glued, sanded and prepped. Okay, so what I have here is the lower ring. You can see it's pretty sturdy without gluing it, but obviously it's going to need gluing. So what we're going to do is each individual piece we're going to glue the seams, and then what I'll do with my 3D prep pen, I'll just go along the edges to make sure they're extra sealed. Now here's a tip for you. I get my filament from 3D Filaprint. Absolutely wonderful service. For every roll of their own brand filament that you buy, you can order a free sample, and you get a I think it's 10 meters. So what I found is very useful is I've just cut along just one part of the circle, and now I have some excellent strips for my 3D print 3D pen, which I'll be using when we go along. So what I'll do is we'll start off with one piece. There's 6 pieces in total, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to separate them into twos, so we'll have 1 and 2 as I'm doing here. We'll have 3 and 4, and then we'll join those together. Then we'll do 5 and 6, and then we'll join this one with this one, and then this one, and obviously this one's going to be the hardest one because that's got to join with 2. I'll do the first one full so that you can see what I'm doing. To be absolutely honest with you, there isn't anything new here, it's just that we're applying it perhaps slightly differently. So once I've done these first 2, I'll carry on doing it, but I'll speed up the footage, and I've actually found a nice little song that I can play in the background. So the first thing we want to do is get some paper. Any paper will do, something just to protect your worktop. And in the with the dome, what we actually done was we used a slow drying glue, and then we clamped it together and screwed it together so that it could take its time to set. We don't have the room here, so obviously if we use, I don't want to use just epoxy on its own. I want to use a nice glue that's going to glue fairly quickly. But as you see, I haven't got the room. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use, if you remember our glue tests earlier on, I'm actually going to be using the cheap super glue, and the reason for that is that I can just drop some glue into there and then give it a moment or two, and then that will stick, and then we can go back and we can finish it off. But the problem is we've established that this is very watery, and it will probably run all the way through, hence we had paper down. Newspaper's probably best, but that's not a problem. So we'll just crack this open. Right, so we make sure that this is flat. In fact, you might even want to drop the glue from the back. Right, so what I'll do is I'll just tilt it to one side. I'll just run a little bit of glue along the seam there. I mean, to be fair, you may not even need to glue it, because the 3D print pen alone should hold it quite nicely. So there we go. And then I'll just get a quick cloth, just a kitchen roll, and we'll just wipe away the excess on the top. This will all be sanded by the time we're finished, and that's not quite stuck. So I'll just, obviously you need to make sure that this is flat first. There we go, just run a bit of glue. It's a very amateur way of doing it, but it works. And it is slight, there we go, that's actually set now. Right, no, it's come undone again. So it does take its time normally. You know, that's actually, watch you don't get it all over your fingers, because it will stick everywhere. Right, so there we go, that's set enough. Now you can see I've got a bit of a warp there, which is why you want to be careful how you're setting it up. So what I'll do now is I'll just finish that off with my 3D printer pen. 3D print pen, what do you call it? Okay, that's not quite ready yet. So right. Now when we get to the pieces that have been printed at a 0.3 layer height, there won't be so much wobble there. Okay, so what I'll do is I'll cut while because the pen is still warming up. Okay, in actual fact, actually loaded up really quick, warmed up really quickly. Right, so we'll get that loaded up. I've cut quite small strands, but the reason for that is so that it just remains a bit more controllable. So we'll just wait for that to load through. There we go. Oh, yeah, I've got some silver from the last time that I used it, so we'll just run that through until that starts. There we go, light grey starting to come through. Perfect. Okay, so what we're aiming to do, I'm going to use a low speed setting, that gives me more time. Now we're actually aiming to get the filament into the gap, which means we need to run rather slowly, melt the edges with the tip, and then just let that ooze in. And it will make a mess, it will need filing over afterwards, but you know, that's the way it is. But it will give us a much stronger bond. So I'll just try and come in a little bit closer. So all we do is we find and it's a slow speed but running it fairly quickly. Okay, that's the top done, almost the top done. Okay, and then this bit's got quite a large gap, so we can just let that ooze in a little bit more. There we go. Then we'll work on the bottom. Perhaps I'll start from this side. Now this part I'm going much slower, because where it's not level I might just benefit from just filling that in. What we don't fill in now we will fill in with a filler, so it matter. And there we go, I think that's done. And that is now a really strong bond. Okay, so I'm going to cut now, but the rest of the rest of this part will be me doing the rest of the rings, and then I found an interesting track for you. You might enjoy this. At the moment, I've been using two pieces of music, one which I use for 3D printing and one that I use for working. But I found a nice little Star Wars related music-ish. That's a little bit fun. Hopefully you'll enjoy.
Penny for your thoughts.
I hate Brenda, and a bad guy hit me in the shin, and I peed all on my pants.
It's nothing a little music can't help. Rockin', rockin' and rollin'. Down to the beach I'm strolling. But the seagulls poke at my head, not fun. I said, seagulls, stop it now. Everyone told me not to stroll on that beach. Said seagulls gonna come, poke me in the coconut, and they did, and they did, had me going like, nothing I could do but yell when these birds attacked me. When I tried to run, I fell, and then these kids started laughing. And then got hit in the neck with a hacky sack. Where'd it come from? Now run, 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 jump. I can be a backpack while you run. Run, 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 jump. Can you stop? Put me down. I love to groove and boogie. Yeah.
Great.
Show you some dance moves.
No, I don't want you to.
If I had your giant feet out there on the beach, could have outrun those birds.
You're a psycho wiener.
Let me grab my beater.
Stop it, please. Don't hit me. Please. Don't hit me.
Come on, man, quit that banging.
Hey, what's that stank?
You put a fish in our basket.
Oh, yeah. I forgot I did that.
You owe me an apology.
Just hold your breath and see when the time is right. Birds will back your face. Now run, 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 jump. I can be your backpack while you run. Swing from a hairy vine. I can be your backpack while you climb. Stand on one hand and lift rocks with your special gift. Run, 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 jump. Now breathe. That's good. Like that. Like that. One day I was walking and I found this big log. Then I rolled the log over and underneath was a tiny little stick. And I was like, that log had a child. Listen, boy, someday when you are older, you could get hit by a boulder. While you're lying there screaming, come help me, please. The seagulls poke your knees. Stop it now.
Yeah, whatever, you're sort of pitchy.
Didn't like it?
Listen, man, I'm not your friend.
Don't fall asleep. Don't fall asleep. Stop it now.
Okay, and this is what it looks like once it's finished. You can see the lines obviously where I've welded them with the 3D printer pen. However, this can all be taken care of at a later stage once we do the sanding. But at least now we've got one piece done, and then as we start to build the body we can just place this on top. Okay, so to finish off, we're going to start on the second row of the rings. These pieces will go on top of the base ring that we've just assembled. Two pieces I've done, and you notice that one of the pieces has got two bits. There's a little additional support. I think this is quite a clever touch, because if that piece was actually where it should be, it would just be sticking out into thin air and we'd be forced to use support. So full kudos to Mr. Badley, who separated that piece so that we don't have to put supports in. So we've got piece number 1, piece number 2, total print time of 9 hours and 12 minutes approximately. And then the rest of my settings are just the normal settings, 0.3 layer height. We're just after a basic framework really. So yeah, we'll get that printed off. Okay, so this is base, I'm going to call it base 1 ring 1. Now this is very cleverly designed. I really must give credit where credit's due. We've gone back to the locating pegs, so we'll be drilling these out at some point with a 2mm drill and popping in some filament. Now on this piece we have one locating peg and one there, so that's obviously going to go into there. Now the reason this is separate is this was the way that it was printed. Now if this was a part of the print like that, you can see that we would suddenly need supports because it wouldn't be able to cope with this bit going across, which means that we'll be printing all in here with unnecessary supports. So what he's done is he's taken this off separately, and we've just got to spend about 5 minutes work, which in all fairness is probably about the same amount of work as we'd need to remove these supports. So absolutely fantastic. So that's going to go into, this will actually, once it's glued, I don't know if it's going to be best to attach this to piece 2 first and then attach it to piece 1, but it will end up looking like that. And there's a little locating hole, see there, a little ridge there and a little ridge there, and oh, can't get it in. And that's how it's going to go in when it's finished. And then this piece will be in nice and securely there, and that's what 1 and 2 will look like together. Looking really good. It's starting to we're starting to see little bits now. We can see that there's going to be something go in there because we've got I assume they're going to be screw holes. So yeah, super impressed now. So this will, and it's getting a bit frustrating now because I'm saying print off pieces for later use, and what I'm doing is I'm popping the pieces into a box, and then all I can do is sit and look at them, which is, I want to do something with them, but obviously we don't want to burn ourselves out too quickly. This is still early days. So yeah, I'm loving this project more and more as it progresses, and I hope you guys are too. However, I'm going to take all the fun away now by doing the weekly accounts. Okay, so we've started this week with a balance of 30p. That's carried over from last week, and then to that we've added our £10 budget for the week. Now the lower rings, they were the silver pieces that we did at the beginning. They cost us a total of about £2.29. And then there was no actual spending on anything that we were preparing this week. We've done the domes. We obviously and they were costing a lot to print, but that's because they're large pieces, and we were printing 2 at a time. That ate a lot of our initial budget. But we've then done we've begun on more work on the body, which we've done 2 of the ring 1 sections. That came to a total of £4.55. They were quite large pieces. There will be some that will cost more, but most of them will cost less. And that's given us a total spend of £6.84 for the week, which gives us a balance of £3.46, which we can carry over to the next week. You'll be pleased to know that if everything goes as planned, we won't actually be spending more than our £10 weekly budget. However, it's important to keep that balance going, because as I've mentioned it before, one of the costs that we do have is going to be the Lazy Susan. Now the price of the Lazy Susan, because it comes from Germany, it's priced in euros, so because of currency exchanges, this will actually fluctuate in price on a day-to-day basis. Perhaps the currency exchange will improve for Great Britain and I'll get it cheaper, but at the moment the price is standing around about £70. It's about 75 euros including postage, so we really need to save hard for that. Obviously if you're carrying more than a budget of £10 a week, you'll be able to save up quicker for it, but I'm setting the budget at £10. I think that's a reasonable amount. Okay guys, so that's the end of the video for this week. Don't forget to keep watching to the end for the shout outs. Your comments are appreciated and they help me grow my channel, and it's nice to know that other people are getting involved or interested in the project too. So next week we're going to finish off the lower ring sections. That's section 6 and 7. That obviously means that if I'm still having problems with the dome and the top pies, it now means I've got something complete that I can just finish off. We can glue those together. I'm not planning on gluing those yet, but it's all back up. And then we'll be printing off more of the body, so we'll be doing sections 3 and 4. Now I like to do 2 at a time. There are quite a few sections. I think there's 12 sections, so we'll get those done over a period of 6 weeks, and then we'll move on to the next section. And there are an awful lot of pieces. Some of the pieces are so large we can only print one on the print bed, but there's a couple of pieces where we can print sort of 4 pieces. So that's it then for this week. It's interesting that I've got a little bit less to do, yet the video still seems to take half an hour. So, but I like to try and explain everything for you. So if you're enjoying the videos, please don't forget to like, share and subscribe. Tell others that might be interested. Leave a comment. Always leave a comment, good or bad. I'm not one of these who delete comments. I will address all comments that are related to the video. If you just want to leave a silly comment, then obviously I'm not going to say anything about that one. But if you don't like the video, tell me why. Quite happy. I did notice that the first video that went up, I got 21 dislikes across all of my videos. So did I annoy somebody? Apologies if I've annoyed somebody. Please tell me why you're annoyed. So that's it then, guys. You take care, and hopefully I'll see you next week. So a big thank you to everybody that watched, liked, disliked my video from episode 4, and especially those who took the time to comment. So first of all, we have Chris Campling. Using the 3D pen is like using a filler, basically, then you sand it smooth. Exactly. I've actually found it's a good alternative to glue. I've found that the more I use a 3D pen, the more I like it, the more it's producing good results, and the less that I actually use glue. But don't discard the glue completely. Horlick says another great video. This is getting exciting now. Totally agree with you, mate. Alan Allsop says, yes, mate, thanks for the shout out. Definitely would pay for it. David Trapp, I'm building R2D2 myself, issue 99. Can't wait till Wednesday for the last one so I can switch it on. I think what you are doing is incredibly difficult. Keep up the great work. Look forward to watching your next video. I'm also doing the Root Master. Now, since I produced that or released that video, I've seen that the D'Agostini R2 is just about finished. The app has been released. Lots of people have been producing wonderful videos. I can see that there's a real challenge ahead if I want to produce something as good as the D'Agostini model. So that, you know, now that I've seen everything that it does, it's really up the game for me. As for difficult, yes, it is difficult sometimes. Sometimes it's extremely frustrating. If it wasn't for the help of Astromech Users Club, the various 3D printing forums, the various droid building forums, yes, it would be incredibly difficult. The main thing really is that there are no instructions for this, or there's some instructions, but partly because it's a totally unique thing, this R2 is going to become unique to me. All I can do is really draw on other people's experiences. Chris Davies writes, great video, Penny, and also pleasure watching them. P40F20 says, wow, love the 3D pen. You get to fill the gaps with the same material as that the part is made of. Then your filler sands at the same rate as your parts. Brilliant. I will have to get one for myself. I don't have a 3D printer, but I can see uses for the pen in my own projects. Do you plan to have an inner frame somewhat like the D'Agostini has to support the plastic parts you are printing? Best of luck with your continued progress on this build. No, there isn't an inner frame. The whole frame is, because it's a solid piece of each part is made of a solid piece of plastic. It's a little bit difficult to explain the science, but each part seems to support each other part, so for example, obviously the height of them is adding some support, but also because they're made up of 20 pieces, for example, or 14 pieces for the ring, there is actually, what I'm finding is I'm assembling or dry fitting the rings as the pieces come off, and there's actually very little support until you've printed the last piece of the ring. Then it becomes extremely strong. It's a little bit like when you have a bridge, you have like the supports. Each support on its own doesn't really hold that much, but the combined supports really does help support. Van Dyke's Prop Foundry says, what resolution did you print the dome at? Now I did put that I'm printing at a 0.3 mil layer height, which was recommended by the artist. That does reduce the print time an awful lot. It reduces quality slightly, which actually isn't a major problem because most of these parts are fairly low detail on their own. It's when you combine the parts that the detail comes in. I've tried printing at a much higher layer height, say 0.5, using a 1mm nozzle. It just doesn't seem to be working for me. I don't know why a larger nozzle wouldn't work, but I acknowledge I am having problems with my 3D printer, and I'm actually having to use just the center of the print bed, so it could be my printer. But basically, the higher the layer height, the faster the prints will come out. Love Minis writes, I've always wondered about the 3D pen. Now that I know it uses PLA, which is easy to find, I think it is a great buy. I was a certified welder for over 20 years and I can think of tons of uses for the pen. Great way to fix the parts together. Yeah, I mean that. The more I use that 3D pen, the more I love it. The uses are fantastic. And then lastly, the internet writes, could you print me the lower 6 helmet hinges, please? I'll PM you on ashamec.net to let you know which ones, as I know the helmet ones have more than 6 lower hinges. Thanks, and it's looking good. Keep it up. Also, this is James Trubery on the .net forum. I have since got hold of James, and I am actually printing some parts off, which is very good actually, because when I print for other people, I print at what I call mates rates, which is I don't print loads and loads of stuff for people, so obviously I get bogged down with just doing other people's stuff. But I charge just a little bit more than it costs me. That just mainly covers a little bit of time and my costs. However, what it also means is, because James has had to send me these files, obviously I've got a copy of those files, so I can see if I can incorporate those into my R2D2. So that's it for this week. Thank you very much for watching, everybody, and hopefully I'll see you all next week.